You know that feeling. Trying to boost sales, but you're just wading through all this business talk, loads of buzzwords flying around, but nothing really seems to land.
Mm-hmm. It gets noisy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the noise we try to cut through here on the Deep Dive. We're really about getting to the core, getting you the useful stuff fast.
And today, the mission is pretty focused. We're looking at sales strategies.
Right. But not from some dry textbook.
No, definitely not. We're actually digging into a business meeting scenario. We want to pull out some practical insights on increasing sales from a situation that might feel, well, surprisingly familiar to a lot of listeners.
It really might. Our source material today is maybe a bit unusual. It's excerpts from an English language learning lesson.
Which sounds odd, maybe.
It does a bit. But stick with us. These aren't grammar exercises. They actually give us this kind of fly-on-the-wall perspective of a sales meeting happening.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And the setup is, well, it's classic. A company's sales are down.
Yep.
And the manager is demanding concrete solutions, right now.
The pressure's definitely on. You can feel it.
Oh, yeah. And what jumps out right away is how the first ideas get thrown out and how the manager reacts. It's fast.
It really is. Roger kicks things off, suggests lowering prices, to match the competitors.
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of that opener?
Well, the manager's reaction, it was pretty swift.
Swift and brutal almost.
Mm-hmm.
Not very creative. And then that killer line, "It'll never fly with Swan."
Right. Instant shutdown, no real discussion.
It really sets a tone, doesn't it? And maybe not the most encouraging one for sharing ideas.
Not really, no. Then Natalie jumps in. She suggests a promotion.
Okay.
Specifically, a 2-for-1 offer.
And the manager's reaction. Same again.
Pretty much, but that's the same thing and then just bad idea. You almost feel like, there's this wall up.
Yeah, like anything that sounds like discounting is just off the table.
It seems that way. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about psychological safety? If ideas just get shot down instantly.
Yeah, people stop offering them. You lose potentially good stuff. It stifles things.
Exactly. But then, the twist.
Ah, yes, the arrival.
Mr. Swan. Presumably the big boss, the CEO.
Seems like it. He walks in.
And suddenly, that exact same 2-for-1 idea.
It's brilliant.
Very creative, even.
The whiplash. It's, well, it says a lot about workplace dynamics, doesn't it?
It really does.
Right.
Suddenly, the idea's value seems tied to who likes it, maybe more than the idea itself.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that kind of thing happen?
Oh, I think most people who've worked in, certain kinds of organizations will recognize that dynamic. It's not just about one manager maybe being a bit inconsistent.
No, it points to how hierarchy can sometimes, get in the way of good ideas bubbling up.
Definitely. But maybe let's pivot slightly, look at some of the specific words and phrases flying around in that meeting.
Good idea. First one, drive sales. Everyone wants to do it.
The core goal.
But what does it really mean in this kind of business context? Obviously, it's about increasing sales, selling more.
Right, getting more money in, more products out the door. Simple enough on the surface. Now, the first two ideas thrown out were ways to drive sales. Roger's was match the competitors by lowering price. What does that really mean strategically?
Well, match the competitors is about looking at what your rivals are doing, price, quality features, and making sure you're, in the same ballpark, or maybe even a bit better on some dimension.
So not necessarily being the cheapest.
Not always, no. The source mentions the idea of a lowest price guarantee, but also admits, look, if your costs are high, maybe you can't be the cheapest. It's more about positioning yourself effectively within that competitive set.
Understanding where you fit.
Exactly. A company might do a proper competitive analysis to see where they stand, find ways to stand out. Maybe it's service, maybe it's brand, not just the price tag.
Okay, got it. And linked to that, the phrase "in the market" popped up. How should we understand that one?
That's really just shorthand for in the industry or in this particular sector.
Simple as that.
Pretty much. The examples they use, like English Pod is the best language pod in the market, or iPods being the most popular MP3 players in the market, it just situates the product.
Okay, clear. Now back to that manager and their interesting phrasing.
Okay.
When shooting down Roger's price idea, saying, "It'll never fly with Swan," that's quite visual. What's the direct meaning?
It'll never fly. It's a great idiom. It just means it won't work, or it's a really bad idea, or maybe crucially here, the people in charge will never approve it.
Right. Swan won't approve.
Exactly. The examples they give, like trying to sell bikinis in Alaska or a really dull movie script, they all paint a picture of something that's just doomed from the start.
Yeah, a definite no. Okay, the lesson also touched on some finer points of English, like fluency and phrasing alternatives. useful stuff for sounding natural in business.
Mm-hmm.
One was, "We'll be here any minute," versus, say, "I'll be here soon." What's the difference in feel?
We'll be here any minute. Just sounds more immediate, doesn't it? Like imminent arrival.
Yeah, more anticipation.
Right. The others are fine, grammatically correct, but any minute gives it that little bit more sort of dynamic conversational energy.
Okay. And another one was using consider instead of just thinking about. The lesson suggested consider sounds smarter, more formal, professional. Why is that?
Well, consider suggests a more deliberate process, like you're weighing options carefully. Thinking about can be a bit more casual, maybe preliminary. So using consider often just sounds like you've given it or are giving it more serious attention. It comes across as more professional, generally.
Right. Adds a bit of weight. And the last one was brilliant instead of just great. More British, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely has a strong association with British English,
Yeah.
but it's pretty widely understood. Brilliant just packs more punch than great.
More enthusiastic.
Definitely. It signals real admiration for an idea, not just mild approval. Adds a bit of flair, as you said.
Okay. Let's go back to the manager again. The lesson itself mentions there were different takes on this person. From what we heard in the dialogue, what's your read on that managerial style?
Well, what really stands out is how reactive they seem. You know, shooting down ideas quickly, not really exploring them, and then that sudden shift based on what the boss thinks. It suggests maybe a less effective leadership approach. It makes you wonder, you know, what kind of atmosphere that creates for the team. Are they really encouraged to bring their best ideas forward?
Probably not, right? It feels like the only ideas that get traction are the safe ones, or the ones the boss, Swan in this case, happens to like on the spot.
Exactly. And the lesson apparently contrasted this with a story about an amazing manager.
Yeah, someone encouraging, knew everyone's name, really motivated people.
And you can immediately see the difference that kind of positive approach likely makes. It's night and day compared to the meeting we heard.
Totally. Which brings us back to those concrete solutions the manager wanted so badly.
Right. We got two suggestions right off the bat. Lower prices and the 2-for-1 promotion.
Both initially dismissed, but then one gets called brilliant. It really highlights how weird the process of evaluating ideas can be inside companies sometimes.
It's true. The actual merit of the idea isn't always the deciding factor, is it? Politics, personalities, timing, it all plays a role.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together for everyone listening. We've looked closely at this little snippet of a sales meeting.
Quite revealing.
And found some really useful bits. We talked about what drive sales means, looked at strategies like matching competitors and using a promotion.
We clarified in the market and decoded that phrase, "it'll never fly."
Yeah, and we also touched on some subtle language points like any minute versus soon, or consider versus thinking about and using brilliant. Plus, you looked at those contrasting managerial styles.
And just by unpacking this short exchange, we saw how communication styles, who's in the room, the hierarchy, even word choice, how it all affects which ideas move forward when a company's trying to, boost its sales.
Absolutely. So here's maybe a final thought to chew on. Think about your own work, your own experience. Have you ever had an idea that got shot down initially only to see it pop up later, maybe suggested by someone else?
Or the other way around.
Or think about the Mr. and Ms. Swans in your world, those key decision makers.
Yeah.
How do those dynamics influence how decisions get made, how new ideas actually see the light of day?
Yeah, it's a really interesting part of how business actually works. Beyond the neat theories, something definitely worth reflecting on.